Hey, what's going on YouTube? Back again with another video. So welcome to my channel. So I want to get right back into it from part 2 from my last video, but let me give you kind of a apologize up front. So the past week, my allergies have been awful. Glad they're not as bad as they were like a week ago. It was awful. So if I sound a little congested, just forgive me. It's still my allergies kind of lingering, even though it's snowing today in April. Welcome to Ohio. Anyway, so last video I talked about kind of customer service nightmares, and I talked about it from the customer point of view and how annoying customers can be. And like I said, any one of us that has worked in retail, whether it be in person, call center, like I am currently in the position I have today, we all run into the same thing. And it's all across the board. It doesn't matter what state, it doesn't matter what country, it's all the same when dealing with customers. So this video, I wanted to talk about the company side of things. And some of the things that I want to talk about that is, and it kind of includes, like, you see so many, like Kim Kardashian is getting shit today because of saying nobody wants to work and women need to get off their ass and fucking work. And that seems to be a constant in today's society. And especially since COVID has happened, of people thinking like nobody wants to work today. No, it's not that nobody wants to work today. People know their worth. I'm pretty sure if you follow some of like the clickbaity type of blogs that I do, like BuzzFeed and anything like that, you'll see an overabundance of blogs or articles of people talking about toxic work environments, dealing with shitty managers, dealing with shitty companies, dealing with shitty coworkers. And some of us are sick of it. A lot of us are sick of it. A lot of us are not making enough money to deal with some of the things that we do. And some of the things don't even make sense. And some of it, it almost seems as if, now we already know capitalism. Companies care more about money and numbers than they do about their customers and their employees. So I hate when customers come in, they're just like, you guys don't care about us. I'm just like, they don't care about us either. But I do have to pay bills. The amount of times that I've had to tell customers literally that, like, I don't understand how you could work for that company. I'm just like, because I have bills to pay. Because I have to deal with companies the same way you have to deal with companies as a consumer. All of us do. We all have, whether electricity, clothes, groceries, whatever, we're all consumers of something. And we're all employees of some company that doesn't give a flying fuck about us. So when I look at like my current company, again, it's a cable company, it's a call center. And I kind of went over it in the first video, talking about like some of the expectations that are expected of us. And this isn't my first call center. This is my third. And it's almost the same all across the board. The last job I worked at was a healthcare company, and it was a call center. And you think about some of the numbers that you have to live up to are kind of ridiculous. AHT, average handle time. However long you can, you're on a call with someone. But the thing is, you can't be on that call long. So at least with my last job, with it dealing with healthcare, it was a little more lenient than it is where I'm at today. Because I'm only in, cable. We're talking billing. What questions do you want about your billing? Here's the answer. Do you have any other questions? Okay, goodbye. That. But when you're dealing with healthcare, and I was on the side of the call center that spoke with doctors, not, healthcare recipients or customers or whatever. So if you're going through and doctors disputing a claim and saying, why did this deny? What is covered under this patient? Is this patient eligible? Why didn't this claim pay as much as it should have? You know, that's going to take a little bit longer. But my thing is, healthcare, cable, an electric, company, whatever, to rush people off of a phone who have legitimate concerns is a little concerning to me. You have, nowadays, I have customers who want to vent because everything's going up. Gas is going up, groceries are going up, cable bills are going up. We just literally went through a rate increase on the 1st of April. So everything is going up except our paychecks. So of course they want to rant and rave, and they want someone to hear that because nobody above us is going to. Even though I understand that there is a reason for rate increases, that still doesn't make the customer's concerns less legitimate, especially when you're worrying about how you're going to get to work because you have to fill up your tank and gas is still $4 a gallon or more than that, depending on where you are. Or the cost of groceries are going up. So you're wondering, how you're going to make meals last throughout the week. These are legitimate concerns. Now, still, look, if we go back to my last video, cable is not a necessity. So obviously a way you can save on your cable bill is to cut it off. But when you have people, this is where my Libra-ness comes in the scales. And it's just but I understand on their point of view of you don't want to cut it off, because if you work 8, 10, 12 hours a day and you come home and maybe your TV or your internet and your Netflix and your Hulu is your only entertainment, I understand that. You come home because we go to work, we come home, we don't have the motivation to do much else other than sit in front of a TV screen, a phone screen, or a laptop. So to kind of rush people through their concerns is concerning to me, because it says to your customer that, yeah, move it along. Okay. Now, this is the first time since it's been over 10 years since I worked at the first cable company that I did, I can't remember if this was a metric or not, but transfer rates. That metric is bogus for 2 reasons. When a person gets their bill, if they have a concern or their cable is out, their internet is slow, they have no dial tone on their phone, if they look up their bill, I've got to call such and such. It's just a general 800 number, and then you depend on that customer to go through the right prompts to get to where they need to go. The only issue with that is if you have someone who might be having technical issues, but really what it is your service is cut off, they could end up in tech support and they're in the wrong department because they actually should have been in billing because you have a balance you need to pay. Or they think fuck, did I pay the bill? And they come over to me in billing and it's just no, everything's fine. Your billing is excellent. I have to get you over to tech support. Somehow or another, with our company, we do have mobile phones as well. And I'm not sure how. I work in billing that deals with cable, internet, and home phone. So how calls come through to me for mobile phones? Because I've never gone through, maybe I should do that. I've never gone through our 800 number and follow the prompts to see if there is a prompt that takes you to mobile, versus maybe if you get your mobile bill, there's a totally different number than the bill you might get for your cable. I don't know. But it's just you depend on people who don't know exactly the department that they need to follow prompts to get them to the correct places, versus maybe putting the different numbers on there. If you're having technical issues, call this number. If you're having billing issues, call this number. If you're calling about your cell phone, call this number. If you want to add on services and you want to speak with sales, call this number. If you want to cancel your services, call this number. Put all those numbers on those phones, because you're rating me because somebody hit a wrong number and now I have to get them to the wrong department. Now, the other issue with that is, if you're somebody and you're trying to watch your numbers of transfer rates and you're trying to keep that low, people get upset with me, and I understand it. But at the same time, I'm trying to watch my numbers. They'll call and they're just like, yeah, this charge went through on my bill and blah, 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 blah. And I have this charge taken out of my credit card. Okay, well, let me pull up your account. And then you find out later they're talking about the cell phone. They're like, okay, let me give you the direct number to mobile service. And they're just like, you can't transfer me? I sure can't. And then they're confused because they're just like, don't companies have the ability to do that? Yes, we do. We absolutely do. We can transfer you anywhere under the sun within, that company. But the thing is, if I transfer you, I'm screwing up my numbers. Like, even if you call in and you ask for a supervisor, for me to transfer you to a supervisor, that's a hit against me on my transfer numbers. A metric like that does not make sense, because I could understand if you're somebody and you're constantly, moving calls to different departments that you actually should be taking, totally different. But if you're getting someone to tech support because their internet is down, we're not tech support, we're billing. Why am I being dinged for that? It doesn't make any sense. Then you have the metric of first call resolution. Again, another one that doesn't make sense, because we live in a society where everyone is skeptical. Everyone is weary of, these big companies and these big corporations. So, and then you have people who have horrible experiences when they call in and speak with representative, and they get the representative who has an attitude or one word answers or short answers, and you call and you're just like, I didn't really like that person's attitude. I really didn't like where that conversation was going. I feel like I was lied to. Guess what? I'm going to call back. And then what happens? That goes against that person's number of first call resolution, because if that customer had to call back, that means you did not resolve their issue. The other bogus part of that, I think first call resolution is within a span of 7 days. So if somebody calls in on a Monday and then turns around and let's say you resolve their issue, but they have to call back in on like Saturday, they just blew your numbers. Even if it might be for a different, even if it is for a different reason. Let's say they called in or even if it's something where they called in and they just wanted their balance. And then Saturday they go, crap, I actually can't pay the bill until such and such day. Maybe I should call back to see if I have enough time to make sure my service isn't cut off if I can't make my payment until this day. It's a blow against their numbers. So the numbers game is just really ridiculous. My biggest issue with the current company that I work for is their need to continue to badger adults about attendance. I understand, I've only been a supervisor. That's like the highest level I've gotten in the company before is supervisor. I know how annoying it can be if you have an employee who is constantly late, constantly calling off, things like that. That makes sense. But when you have someone, like for instance, last week, again, because of me being kind of sick, I called off my last 3 hours. I was already in a coaching, so it's not like I got a coaching individually for that. And then people who have worked in call centers, you know what coachings are. Coachings are when your supervisor, they either go over calls with you, or if they want to talk to you about like your attendance, like you've been absent for so many days, they go on and have these discussions with you. So I was already in the coaching. So they bring up the attendance. I worked the majority of my shift. I called off my last 3.5 hours. The last time I called off was more than a month before that. So they get in the habit of talking to you about patterns. What type of pattern is you call off a partial day and the last time you called off was more than a month ago and was also a partial day? Well, we don't know. The last time that they discussed it with me was just like, well, we don't know if we might have to write you up. For what? What is the point of giving employees PTO, sick time, vacation time, all of this other time? What is the point of giving your employees that if they can't use it? Like I said, I know there are people in there, at any company who abuse that. I understand. But when you have people who do not, it doesn't make sense. My first call center at the other cable company, people had this shit down to a science on how to abuse FMLA. They would go to work. One girl told me, go to work for 6 months, take off 3. Work 6 months, take off 3. And it's very easy to do. I did it. So I mean, I can understand that. I had very legitimate reasons when I took my, FMLA at that point. But it happens. But also the reason that people abuse stuff like that is if you have these supervisors who are hounding you over dumb stuff, you're getting abused on the phone 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Like, you can't blame people for wanting to get away. There's no way to escape it. Then, speaking of time off, with the current company that I'm at, what made me fed up is, we know with COVID, it's been a very iffy and touchy subject when it comes to businesses. Mask mandates, all of that. So they recently just stopped it. But from the time that I've started that company until maybe a couple weeks ago, if that long, they had this thing set up in place where before you start your shift, before you even come into work, you had to go into this website and you had to plug in, answer these questions. Some of the questions were something like, was your temperature over 100? Do you have any COVID-like symptoms? Have you been in close contact with someone who's had COVID in the past week or 2 weeks, whatever the time span was? And that was it. So this was prior to when I started working from home. Obviously, I was in the office because obviously you didn't have to do that questionnaire if you're working from home. So it's when you were in the office. So I had a coworker who came into work sick. Now, there were some of my other coworkers who were chastising her or talking shit behind her back, really, because they didn't say it to her face. Were chastising her about, why would you come to work sick, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, well, we were still fairly new, first of all. Second of all, I already told you about the whole attendance thing. So nobody wants to hear that about, let's coach your attendance. Nobody wants to do that. And nobody wants to run through their sick, vacation, and personal time. And nobody wants to get in trouble for taking off, So she came into work and I didn't know how bad she was, but, we're talking over chat. She didn't sit near me. She sat on the other opposite side of the building. And she was talking about how her mom had made her this soup or whatever. And she was like, guys, if you want to try it, just let me know. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. So she comes over and she brings me the soup in a cup, whatever. She's got her mask on. Next day, she's not there because she got results that she tested positive for COVID. Now, what our company's policy was, is if you were in close contact with someone who tested positive for COVID HR was supposed to come and tell you and then send you home to quarantine as well. That never happened. Nobody ever came to talk to me about anything. Nothing. And even though they didn't come tell me directly, another coworker told me, like, oh, well, they didn't think it was necessary to tell you because when she gave you the food, she had her mask on. That doesn't mean that when she brought the soup in from her home, she had a mask on. That doesn't mean that when she was in the break room putting the soup in a cup that she had a mask on. What that means is when she came near my person, she had a mask on. Pretty sure she wasn't at home making the soup or whatever with a mask on. Why didn't HR feel like it was necessary to tell me that? So that's when I was done. That's when I said, my whole, I'm still there, but I'm planning, because I thought that was very disrespectful. Like, we are dealing with this whole pandemic and there are policies in place for a reason. And you guys totally went against your own policy. And what for? I didn't understand why that was necessary. And then I get coached on attendance because, again, when I went through that questionnaire, when the question came up of, have you been in close contact with someone who has COVID? Yes. Then it tells you, call your manager. You can't go into the office. And then I get coached because it's just like, I don't know what the reason was, but it's just like, I'm following your guys' policy. You didn't. So I'm done. But you deal with these companies who legit do not care about their people. They don't care about their customers, nothing. I haven't had many jobs. I started working at 19. I'll be 40 later this year. I've worked at a library. I've worked at a bookstore. I've worked in the cable call center. I've worked at a clothing store, a pharmacy, a healthcare company, and now another cable call center. And when I tell you, I can only think of less than 5 supervisors and managers who have been absolutely excellent. And I feel like it is so sad that coming across a manager or supervisor that is an actual understanding human being and fair is so very rare. When I worked at the bookstore that I worked at, I had the most amazing general manager. He treated everybody fairly. He was the type of manager, actually most of the supervisors and managers at this job were the type of managers where it's just like, we could go out after work for drinks. We could go out to a club together and not feel like if my boss sees me do this, will there be repercussions for it? Never. He was the type of manager, and I will never forget this. So when I was living in Chicago, I was living, to say paycheck to paycheck was, that doesn't even cover it, because paycheck to paycheck didn't cover anything for me in Chicago. It really didn't. And I was working part-time, and he understood that I was struggling. And he got in the habit of, anytime someone called off, he called me like, hey, Asia, so-and-so called off. Can you come in? I'll be there. And it became so frequent. Now, this bookstore was on, if you live in Chicago, it was on the Mag Mile. So it was out on the outskirts of downtown, more north. So, right across from the water tower. I lived clear across on the south side on 70th and South Shore. So I was way away. And if any of you lived in even Hyde Park or have taken a bus from Hyde Park, you know how long that bus can be, taking like bus 6. Me, I had the advantage of sometimes if I was able to make bus 14 or bus 6 was the most frequent. That's about an hour maybe not totally, but it's almost like an hour drive to get from where I live to downtown. But it became so frequent that he would ask me to fill in for people that I would wake up in the morning, get dressed, come downtown, just make sure I had my writer, bring all my writing supplies. I would camp out in the library downtown and if I got the call, be there in 10 minutes, If it was summertime, I might be sitting in Millennium Park, get the call, hey, I need you, be there in a couple minutes, So it got so frequently that I just made a habit of always just being nearby. I will never forget that man for that. And then you have the ones that were awful that you'll never forget. I'll never forget the manager when I was working in Chicago in the other cable call center. And again, I'm from Ohio. My father had a stroke. When he had the stroke, it was actually the day before my day off. So I was on my way home from work when I found out, went home, rushed home, packed my bags, got on a Greyhound. When I got into Ohio that next morning, I called my supervisor. I'm like, look, it's early. I'm just getting in. I haven't even been to the hospital to see how my dad is, but I had to let you know I had to come home. Okay, just keep us updated. Just keep us abreast of what's going on. Yada, yada. Cool. Spent some time with my father in the hospital for a couple of days. Then he ends up getting moved over to a rehab facility because he had problem with walking. He had problem with his speech. So he had to go through speech therapy, physical therapy, all of that. So it is the day before I'm getting ready to leave Ohio to come back to Chicago. And I got a call while I was still in the room with my father. So I didn't answer the phone. So I listened to the voicemail. I was walking out and the manager goes, so how long is this going to be? And I'm just like, whoa, did you really just start a conversation with that? When by that point, I don't think I was there for even an entire week, but I called every single day. What do I need to do? Do I need paperwork? Who do I need to speak with? What process do I need to, what do I need to do for FMLA, whatever. Let me know when I need to get started. And my supervisor told me, just be with your family. That is the most important thing. And just keep us up to date. So that's what I did. So for the manager to call me and have that kind of reaction really pissed me off. Because I'm just like, this is my father. I only get one. And you just treating it like, whatever, how long is this going to take, is what he literally said. He ended up getting fired a couple of weeks after that because he kept fucking around with the women in the office. Anyway, but when I came back, I made sure I had however many doctors checked on him in the hospital, give me a note. When I went to the rehab facility, anybody, give me a note. So I came back with all this paperwork, all these notes. And then my supervisor had the nerve to ask me, I'm back on the phone. I'm, taking calls, whatever. I'm in the middle of a call. And she goes, why didn't you come back when your father was in the gray area? And I'm just like, hey, ma'am, can you please hold? So I put on hold and I said, what are you talking about? And she said, why didn't you come back when your father was in the gray area? I said, what is a gray area? Oh, when he went from the hospital to the rehab facility. Ma'am, he still can't talk. That's my father. There was no gray area to me. He was a fully functional human being a week ago, and now he can't string a sentence together. Can you please tell me where this gray area is? Because there's no gray area in my eyes. That's when I was done with him. Because I'm just like, are you really fucking kidding me right now? These companies do not care about people. So when I hear people say that nobody wants to work anymore, no, everybody is realizing their worth. I'm not going to put my job in front of my family. I'm not going to put my job in front of my health. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to work myself to death for a company who literally does not care about me. Where if I run into any tragic issue, they kind of go, well, how long is that going to take? Like even with this company, I started in August of last year. I miscarried in October. They had the nerve to talk to me about fucking attendance because I had to have a DNC and have the whatever was left of the baby removed out of my uterus. And I couldn't make it to work the next day because they had me on whatever breathing machine or whatever, and my throat was sore. So obviously I can't talk on the phone. But it was just like, okay, and that's why I always make sure when I did that, I make sure start a paper trail with HR. Hey, I know I'm going to have this. I don't know how it's going to be. I know I'm new here, but I do have the time. I can't take off. I need this surgery immediately. And these people, they don't care. And almost as awful as customer service is, that is why I almost much rather prefer to work in a retail setting as far as in person versus a call center. The only problem with that is the benefits aren't as great as if you were in a call center. But it's easy to work into a retail place when you're just like, oh, okay, go ahead and take as much time as you need. We'll call in whoever we need to take your place. Whereas you'll have a call center full of like 300 people, and if you take off, they act like the whole thing is going to fall apart. Meanwhile, I can work in a pharmacy with just 4 people, and I can take off for a week, and they can figure out a way to cover you while you're going through something tragic. You know what I'm saying? It's a family aspect, but not really, because I hate that whole aspect of people like, this isn't just a job, we're a family. Not really. But it still is, when you have a small staff, it is better for you to kind of cover for each other. Same thing with the pharmacy. I had a coworker where her daughter was killed, and we all banded together like, you need to take off as much time as you need. I understand you need the money. And, that's a whole other thing. People in the community were, rounding up money for her, whatever. And we're just like, please take your time off. We have it. Whereas if she had been in a call center setting, she probably would have gotten a couple of days off, and they've been calling her and saying, how long is this going to take? So these companies, they don't care. It's easier to work almost in a retail setting where you have individual managers and supervisors who aren't super pressed by numbers. Call centers are all about numbers, and that's it. They don't care about the individual. They don't care about the person. They don't care about your circumstance. They don't care about your history. Nothing about that. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So it becomes hard. So it's not that people don't want to work. It's that people don't want to be treated like shit anymore. And if you're going to treat me like shit, I'm going to need a lot more money, So I might even complain about the job that I have now, but at 20 some odd dollars an hour, just to talk about somebody's cable bill for 8 hours, it's not bad. But at the same time, I wish companies gave their employees much more respect. I wish they gave their customers much more respect, because without the customer's dime, where are you? You're nowhere. If people got smart and started pulling their funds from these things that they don't need and these companies that treat them like crap, these companies wouldn't exist. They wouldn't exist. Cable companies. People talk all the time like everyone's going up, up. And it's just like, cable's not a necessity. Think of what an impact your dollar can make if you take it back. But we're not ready to make those decisions. People talk about these large, not food chains, but store chains. And we know they treat their customers like, or not their customers, well, their customers too, but we know they treat their employees like crap. You have, elderly people who can't even make their medication and are working for $12 an hour, having to go back to work, and we still go there. We still shop there as if there's not any other alternative. There is, and we just don't want to make those changes. And it's sad. So yeah, you're going to have a lot of people who don't want to work anymore. Because you have people who are motivated to start their own thing, start their own businesses, create things and make their own money without having to deal with some boss hounding them about numbers or making them feel like crap because they have to take care of their own well-being or their family. I believe, no, even though I don't see eye to eye with my family, I would never put a job before my family. It's just as simple as that. And these companies don't understand that. They don't understand that at all. All they understand is money and numbers. And that's it. Well, YouTube, I didn't want to make this one as long as the last one because I know the last one was super long, even with edits, if you can, imagine that. So next one I want to make, it's going to be on a topic that I said that I'm kind of touchy about, which is toxic parenting. And I'm really kind of invested in that topic right now because, again, I am pregnant. So you think about toxic parenting and then you start thinking about what kind of parent you want to be, the type of parent that you want to strive to be. And so that is the next venture I want to talk about, which actually, if I have time, I might do today. So if you see me in the same outfit, that's why it was all made in the same day. And also, if you see the same change of scenery, it's because it is my self-care weekend. I decided this year that probably stop here in a couple of months because I want to save money for baby. But I figured every other weekend, me and my boyfriend should go to a hotel and chill for the weekend, just to kind of get away. I work from home. I'm in that house all day, every day. I'm tired of looking at it. Change of scenery is nice. It feels like you had a break, even if it's just for a night or two. And it's nice. It's nice. So, yeah, I brought my stuff with me and said, I'll just make a video while I'm here, while he's at work and I'm waiting. So, all right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Thanks. Just like and subscribe and share. Don't forget to share. But yeah, later, YouTube.